order, and welcome to Tim and Dwayne for participating. Prior to today's meeting, the board met in closed session to discuss matters that their opinion fell under Section 35-4 of the Police Services Act, and as per the Owen Sound Police Services Board bylaws, Section 119-1 closed items, and to discuss items about a identifiable individual. So moving forward, can I have a motion to approve the agenda, please?
So moved.
Thank you, Garth. Seconder?
I'll second.
Thank you, Joe. Yeah, so far I can only get 3 people up on the screen. So if you have something to say, please speak up. I can't see hand movements. And all in favor of approval of the agenda?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
In favor.
Thank you. Declaration of conflict of interest arising out of the minutes and matters listed on the agenda. Hearing none. Presentations, deputations, and public question period. I think we have 2 people that we're going to talk about their appeal on the license. We met in closed session and discussed. They presented their case and their appeal on it. And I think at this point in time, what we would do would be to a motion for Mr. John Mather, whether to allow him a taxi license at this point in time. So would someone like to make a motion that we approve or decline Mr. Mather's taxi license?
John Tamming here. I move that we confirm the police chief's decision.
Thank you, John.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Ian?
In favor of that.
And Garth?
Favor of the motion, just to be clear.
Yes, thank you.
In favor of the motion to withhold the chief's, support the chief's decision.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next item on tax license appeal was from a Richard Giberson. And could we have a motion to confirm the police chief's decision to decline the application for license?
Motion to approve the chief's decision.
Thank you, Garth.
I'll second it. It's Ian.
Thank you, Ian. Jill, in favor?
Yes, I am.
Thank you. And John, in favor?
Yes.
Carried, thank you. Okay, and next item up, I think we had Chief was something about Jason Cranny and First Nations art to be displayed in the station.
Yes, I just sent him. I sent him a message while we were getting set up there, and I'm not sure if he's in the other room or if he's coming to this room. So we're just waiting. I'm just waiting to get back from him.
That's all right. I got the paper search and shuffle, anyways.
We can maybe move it along. Inspector Fnoody's gone to locate him.
Okay.
If
So
we-
next item would be confirmation of the minutes of the public session held May 26, 2021. Could I have a motion to approve those minutes?
I'll move approval. It's Ian.
Thank you, Ian. Seconder?
Garth.
Thank you. Jill, in favor?
Yes.
Thank you. John, in favor?
Yes.
Thank you. Carried. Any business arising out of the public session meetings of May 26, 2021? Hearing none. Correspondence received. I included in your package 2 thank you letters. One commenting on the great job that the police had done escorting a runner across town, and also her parents had also shouted out to the great job they'd done. The other letter that was included in your package was expressing gratitude for all that the Owen Sound Police Services does, and stands for. Also received a letter from the Ministry of Solicitor General re the court grant. I think the chief mentioned their decision of no changes at our last meeting. This letter is our formal notice that there will be no changes. And I think the city manager is still going ahead with a meeting with the AMO meeting coming up in August. Is that right, Tim?
Sorry, just unmuting. Yeah, so we're planning on moving forward with a delegation at the AMO meeting, and I'll be connecting with the chief on that for assistance. So they're virtual this year; they're not in person.
Correct. Okay, good. Thank you.
Quick question from me, John.
Yes.
I note in that letter that it refers to an agreement that was sent to us in March 31st. I guess a question for Mr. Simmons. I assume that we have signed that and returned it or not?
Yeah, I can check with our city treasurer, but generally, as soon as we get those, we sign those back right away and get them returned to whoever they need be. But I can confirm for 100%.
Thanks. Next question would be for Chief Ambrose. What is our obligation here? What happens if we didn't sign the agreement and chose not to provide the service? Are we obliged to because it's in our municipality, or are there any options there? Do you know at all, Craig, or is that something we can find out?
So we're obliged to under the Police Services Act. It lays it out that we're responsible for it because it's in our jurisdiction. So it's under the act and it's legislated. If we didn't sign the agreement, then there wouldn't be any transfer of funds. So I don't know that it would be in our best interest not to.
Okay, so even though Grey County, it's the Grey County Courthouse, because it's within Owen Sound, then it's our jurisdiction. We couldn't hand it over to the OPP to take over the security for the courthouse then.
That's correct. They have no responsibility for security within the building. And currently they don't have any members working within the building anymore.
Oh, okay. Good, thanks.
Sorry.
Go ahead, Craig.
Yeah, John Tamming?
Sure.
Thanks. Chief, do we get this 403 regardless, given the fact that nobody's in the courthouse?
That's correct. Through the chair, that based amount is based on the costs for providing court security for the previous year. So that's how the portion is determined. So that amount would reflect a portion of last year pre-COVID, and then the COVID reductions as well.
So it's found money, right?
I mean, we spent it last year and we get reimbursed for it this year.
Okay, thank you.
Just to follow up to Ian's question regarding whether we signed the contract with the ministry. I think it was back in March that it was brought to council, and there was a bylaw passed that point in time for the treasurer and city manager to enter in their agreement with Solgen. All right.
Thanks.
Just moving on. Is Jason close by, or is?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, we're ready to go now.
Okay.
Go back.
Great.
So I asked Jason to come in today in regards to the First Nations art, and I'm not going to steal the thunder. It was Jason's doing, and it related to some partnership with Wickwadong First Nations Center, as well as St. Mary's Secondary School, and we have an Aboriginal Studies course, and they created some artwork for the program. So Jason, I'll let you take over if you could.
Sure. I guess for the last couple of years, coming into this role, it was looking to strengthen the partnerships we already had, and then building on partnerships that we may not have had already. We already have had a really strong relationship with both school boards, but one of the areas that we wanted to strengthen even more was within some specific pockets of our community. One of them was the Muslim community. Certainly, our gay and queer community, and obviously our Indigenous community. And it was really nice when Mawekwadong was building just basically just around the corner. So we've been having lots of discussions with Mawekwadong, and from that, the idea was to reach out to some of our youth who really are the forefront and are change agents as we move forward. So I've been working with the Indigenous Studies at St. Mary's High School, and we have a lot of wall space in here, and we really felt that it was important that we started showcasing some of the great talented artists in Owen Sound. And so the area which we decided to start with was the Indigenous Studies class. And so I offered an opportunity for a couple students to basically create some art for our police service. And this is the art that was submitted. Both of the young ladies, Amanda Sylvestre and Maddie, they have Indigenous roots. Maddie's grandmother is actually an elder in a northern community. They couldn't be here today because they're actually writing an exam, but they are coming in tomorrow to meet with command, the chief and the inspectors, and also to take a tour of the station. So it's really been a big part of moving forward and trying to continue to strengthen these relationships, to have our youth see our police service and see what we do, and be part of our growth moving forward. And whenever possible, if we have opportunities to post, display, to celebrate our youth, we're certainly going to do so. And this is just another movement towards that. So great pieces of art. We're happy to put them up. And then hopefully in the next couple of weeks, we'll pick a nice spot and we'll have it here in the station.
Great, thanks, Jason. Looks really good stuff. Now, will that be there for the whole year, or will it rotate with new pictures, new pieces of art coming in next year?
I talked to the chief about it. It'd be really nice if we could rotate some of our art. We can certainly have it, but we have lots of wall space here. And there's lots of great artists, both at OSDSS and St. Mary's, and even at some of our elementary schools. And, other than a couple nails, I mean, it really brightens up the area. It's good for the officers. And it's also good for our young people to, have some positive messaging or positive images in our station. And it adds a little bit of color. And in this case, it also adds a little bit of culture. So the hope is that we can rotate it. I don't see why we couldn't. St. Mary's and OSDSS have been phenomenal partners over the last, well, they've been phenomenal partners for a long time, but I've only been here for a couple of years, phenomenal partners. And I can't really see why we couldn't do that. I don't see any hurdles why that would be a problem. In fact, I think it's something that I would certainly support and hope that we could continue to do that, not only with our Indigenous Studies class, but with any of our leadership art classes, whatever, because there's lots of talent out there. And if we can have a slant or a focus on healthy, supportive communities, cultural awareness, anything like that, I think it's good for our members, it's good for the community, and certainly good for our station. Right,
exactly. Maybe after those 3 rotations, it might even end up in the art gallery, John. Okay, moving on. Thank you very much for your report, Jason. That was great. And the art looks really, really well. How soon will it be up in the station for people to see?
Sorry, what was that?
How soon will the art be up in the police station for people to see?
We're hoping to put it up in the next week or so.
Okay, great. Good. Thank you very much.
Just one comment too, that although the costs weren't significant, the costs of that program were borne by the human trafficking grant, the proceeds of crime frontline policing grant that we were given. Some portion of the outreach funding was used for that, so there was no cost to the service.
That's excellent. Great. Well, good use of the funds. All right, moving on to number 8, Chairman's report. I've got a quick report on the Ontario Association of Police Services Boards AGM and conference that we attended May 26th through May 28th, 2021. And there was a number of really good speakers that talked about strategic planning. We got an update on the municipal board regulations, and also on the changing the conversation on policing in Ontario and promoting excellence, equity, and public confidence. And that was presented by Devon Clunas, who's the new Inspector General, as well as the Deputy Inspector, Ken Weatherall. Jill, Garth, and Chief Ambrose, myself attended the 3 days, and Ian attended, I think, was the first day. As you probably know, there's people often hear or focus on certain items presented at conferences, and they often have different takeaways. So before I provide any thoughts that I have on my takeaways from the conference, maybe I'll ask board members if they could provide any of the highlights that most appeal to them or pique their interest the most. Ian, do you have anything?
I just note that one of the things that came out was that we're supposed to have a board member sitting on the, I'm forgetting the name of it, Community Wellbeing Committee. And we discussed that maybe at our last meeting or the meeting before that, that we thought now that it's up and running and Chief Ambrose goes to it, that we maybe don't need to have somebody, but it's my understanding from that presentation, as well as talking to some of our municipal members already, that we do need to have somebody from this board attending that. So we should elect somebody before the meeting's out. I'm not sure if you've got that in the agenda, if I missed that. But
yeah,
that was the main thing that jumped out for me.
Yeah, 16B item is there. So we'll get to that, Ian. Thank you, though, for bringing it up. And that was brought up by, I think Fred brought that up. So, okay, any other comments on the conference?
I'd just like to make a comment. Like any conference, there was a lot of information, and
Yeah.
it's good information, but not all of it was entirely engaging. But the keynote speaker on the Friday, Dr. Robin Hanley Defoe, I was really impressed with her. I thought she was a great speaker. And Chief, I don't know if you had an opportunity to hear her, but it came to my mind that if we do for our members again, I know we did last year, the year before, we put on an event for first responders and their families. She struck me as someone who would be a great speaker for an event like that if we were going to be doing something similar in the future.
That would be great if we could get her for something like that. Chief, that's basically yours.
I was present for that session, and yeah, very knowledgeable, very insightful, and would be a great do a great presentation if we do that again.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else, Jill? No. Moving on, Garth. Anything that you took away from the conference?
I also included in my thinking the zone meeting, because I was hard to separate where we heard what. And most impressive, I thought, were the presentations by Dr. Defoe as well. Particularly hearing her story and that how she got to where he is, to me, is impressive and is a good message for anyone to hear. That was the highlight for me. I was not at all impressed with the OPP session. I think they've even been some gaps in the act with respect to that session, because they don't seem to have the wherewithal to create their boards. It doesn't seem clear at this moment anyway how the OPP board structure will work out. It was also impressive to hear Sarah and Michelina. They had excellent presentations. Again, a lot of it is work in progress, because there's very little has been resolved with respect to regulations and act. We've been waiting an awful long time for it, and some of the provisions I think are going to be encouraging as we go along with that. I heard again from the Inspector or Director General and the associate, that was much the same message. We're going to work along and play nice. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Garth. John, did you have anything? I sent you the slide. I know you had,
No. I just was blown away by the opening keynote speaker as well on the Friday. It was, I really want to get that in the hands or the inboxes, at least, of every first responder in the Twin Counties. I have seldom heard a better speech, and I think I've heard a lot of speakers. And what she said about mental health, centering yourself and so forth, just a powerful presentation. So.
Yes, you're right. It was just excellent, and her own personal life story also made a big impact on the overall speech. So that was quite good.
Mr. Chairman, I just interrupt 1 second again. That information, very much of that information is online as well. If you Google Dr. Defoe, you will see that her story is online, particularly the news story around her car accident and so forth, as well as I think much of the speech is on there. She has given that same speech to many people in this area.
Yes, that's correct. I Googled it later on too and found it. Good. Great. Thank you on that one. I guess my biggest takeaway or observation was the amount of training and education that's going to be required from the board with the new CPSA, and it's going to add extra to our job description, I'm sure. The presentation, as Garth mentioned, with Sarah and Michelina, they highlighted some of the issues coming up under the new CPSA. And just briefly, there were the provisions of policing, accountability, oversight, and discipline, professionalism, newly proposed constable framework, and finally, touching on adequate and effective policing. And I'm not sure whether everyone knows this, but you can find those presentations, especially Sarah's and Michelina's, on the Ontario Association of Police Services Board website. And they're under training, no, they're under events, so they're posted there. Just a quick update on the Zone 5 meeting that Garth and I attended on June 8th. Dwayne was there and he provided an update from the ministry, and he hopes to have Fred Constantine, at the executive director of the Ontario Association of Police Service Board, at the next meeting to give an update to the Zone 5 participants. Also, he'll be probably providing an update on their training program that they proposed, and that's some of the information I provided to you earlier today. Dwayne spoke briefly of that when the CSP is proclaimed in 2020, Section 10 boards will automatically be collapsed and new OPP boards would be in place with a minimum of 5 members per board. He also noted there will be no changes to Zone 5. So even though some of these boards are collapsing, Zone 5 will continue to exist and represent us at the Ontario Association of Police Service Board. And just generally, the ministry continues to work on the development of regulations related to the requirements in the new CSPA. And I think Section 35 of the regulations will spell out in detail the timelines for training of new and existing board members. I don't think there's going to be an extended grandfathering period. I think they're going to have to implement the training shortly after the CPSA is proclaimed. Their next meeting with Zone 5 is scheduled for September 14th, 2021, and that location has yet to be determined whether it'll be in person or virtual. So that was my update from Zone 5. Garth, did I miss anything that maybe we should?
No, I think that's good. It's always good to hear these things, although be sure nice to see something that has been actually enacted.
Yes, it's been out there for, it's been proclaimed for a while, but it hasn't actually been enacted.
Sure.
All right, moving on to reports from Inspector Bishop.
Morning, everyone. I'll start with the Criminal Investigations and Drug Unit report. Busy month through May. First event, speak to May 2nd. This was what ultimately was an unwanted guest call, but as it turned out, there was some belief that the person had weapons. The person was also wanted on warrants by both us and the OPP. Because of the circumstances, the OPP emergency response team was called. This was a Sunday. We probably were there for the better part of the day for that. Residence was contained while we were writing a warrant to get the emergency response team inside. The suspect voluntarily exited the house and was arrested by detectives. While he was in custody with us, his behavior and comments resulted in him getting some additional charges of intimidation of a justice system participant, uttering threats, and breach of probation order. He remains in custody. We recovered a stolen vehicle. 29-year-old Collingwood man. He was charged after a stolen car was stolen rental vehicle actually was abandoned here in Owen Sound. Our detectives were able to locate and review surveillance video, which led to the suspect being identified and charged with the offense. He also remains in custody. Obviously, the big one for May, which you've heard about, before was our homicide. 22-year-old male was killed on May 16th after an altercation that occurred in the 900 block of 6th Street East. Since that time, detectives have been conducting an exhaustive investigation into the circumstances. The report says 3 persons have been identified and arrested for first-degree murder with an arrest warrant out for the 4th, but since the time this report was written, the 4th is now under arrest as well. Extensive evidence has been seized in this, and a lot of it has gone for forensic analysis. This investigation is all hands on deck for the remainder of May. That is pretty much what everybody in CIB did. I can't stress the amount of work that's going to continue to go on to this. This will have a rippling effect for us all through the summer, particularly with 4 accused. The amount of disclosure and follow-up tasks is massive for this. So this is going to be the sort of the defining moment of the summer for the criminal investigations branch as it continues. In terms of drug overdoses, unfortunately, we had another overdose fatality in May, 22-year-old Owen Sound female. This puts us up to 7 for 2021, and you'll see at the bottom there, we're only 1 off of where we were last year for the entire year, and we're halfway through the year right now. So, and when you look at 2019, there was only 3. So this is continuing that very concerning trend that seems to be happening across the province. But certainly our overdose deaths are up for the year. Subject to any questions you may have, that's the criminal investigations report. You'll note there isn't an auxiliary report this month. We stopped putting reports out that say we have no report. Although a nice thing is we are now looking at bringing the auxiliary back basically to synchronize with the phase 2 reopenings, which we hope are going to be in July. So once that happens, we will be going back to bringing our auxiliary back in, which will include ride-alongs. As of today, actually, it looks like all of our staff that want to be vaccinated we have a few stragglers getting done today with the 2nd vaccine. So I'm glad to say our service will be fully vaccinated of those that chose to have it probably by the end of the day today. So that's other good news on that front.
Very good. Okay, thank you, Inspector. Any questions for the Inspector? Okay, moving on, reports from Inspector Looney.
Thank you. During the month of May for collisions, we had 34 with 16 on the east side, 6 on the west side, and 12 in parking lots. 8 failed remains, and 13 of those were investigated by our collision reporting center, and 21 of them investigated by our officers. Moving on to community services. In May, the community services officer continued his work with Owen Sound, Grey Bruce, Family-Wise Settlement and Language Services, and provided a presentation on common frauds and scams with immigrants and newcomer families. Similar presentation was also given to clients of the CMHA. Our after-school student continued work and doing work on a partnership brochure with Crime Stoppers and building a bike safety presentation for day camps once they get opened up. They continue to provide care packages, including 211 resource cards, socks, and gift cards. This was sponsored by the County of Grey and the United Way to newcomer families and also individuals who could use a hand up. The community services officer started his facilitating and assessing police learning course, which he has now completed in June. And he was also working with the Alzheimer's Society, working on a train the trainer program for officers on providing some training on missing persons with Alzheimer's. And that training will be provided to each each platoon and our criminal investigations branch. He continued with our social media platforms and the work he does there, highlighting the service during Police Week, among other things, and also a show of solidarity with our Indigenous community and the 215 lives lost in Kamloops. He also continued with the kids program at Eastridge and Alexander schools, and provided virtual tours of the police service to Hillcrest students and Eastridge students. And provided in your package is some photo of some thank you cards that were provided by a grade 1 class in regards to his work there, and also a still shot of our social media launch of the Positive Choices Safety Village. And if there's no questions, I can move on to lost hours and training. For the month of May, we had 8 full-time members report sick, for consisting of 25 complete or partial shifts for a total of 278 hours. We have 1 member partially on WSIB doing modified duties, and we have 2 members that are on LTD. For training, we have our new recruit constable that has started in May on the basic constable training course at the police college. We had 1 member attend the crisis negotiator course in Brantford. We had 4 part-time members start their communicator training for being dispatchers. We had 2 part-time members continue with their in-house communicator training. And we also had our spring block training for our police officers, which included annual firearms requalification. They did road to mental readiness training, as well as we had presentations provided by Victim Services and our open source intelligence analysts.
Just one thing to highlight: the road to mental readiness training is originally designed for for Canadian military. It has to do with mental health, for make members more aware of their own mental health, and a continuum model and where people fall along that. So concentrates on our members' wellness and our members' well-being.
That was one of our targets to complete for our business plan, and which has all been completed now with the officers.
Yeah.
Okay.
Moving on to the frontline patrol report. We had a total of 145 Highway Traffic Act charges, 60 cautions. We had 9 Liquor License Act charges, 145 criminal charges, and 154 hours of foot patrol between our 4 platoons and our part-time officers. In our ride program, there was 15 on-duty ride checks conducted during the month of May. We had 32 officers involved in that and 248 vehicle drivers checked. We did not have any charges laid as a result of those ride checks. However, we did have 2 impaired charges that were laid during regular patrols.
Thanks, Inspector. Any questions from anyone? John, did you mention something earlier that you had a question on ride stats, or?
No, I think that answered it. I didn't see, I'm used to seeing the ride telling us what the statistics were of 24-hour warnings and impaired charges, but I didn't see that. So I take it 0 was the answer.
Yeah, I think so.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thanks, Inspector. Moving on to reports from Director Flooney, and who will be Director Flooney today?
That would be me again.
Okay.
First report, board bylaws. You'll notice there's only 1 item on there, which is a taxi license denial. That would be Mr. Mather. Mr. Giberson will be reflected as a June denial. So that was the only activity on the board bylaws. Next, we move to the courts. There were no custodies transported. That's again as a result of our COVID changes. 76 persons in custody of our own charges appeared by audio from our cell block this month, and total special constable hours 781 and a half is the hours for our specials. Any questions on that? Okay, I will move on to the records report. Local criminal record searches still caught up as has been for the last number of months, and a total of 5,917 bulk searches completed in May of this month. And that is in comparison to 2,284 from May of 2020. So continuing with our trend of good news, the bulk searches are the ones that are revenue generating for us. So actually a fair bit more than doubled over last year. So that's good news. That would be Director Flynny's reports. Perhaps any questions?
Thank you, Inspector. Any questions for anyone? No? Okay, moving on to report from Director Bell Matheson, and Craig, will you be Suzanne today?
Mr. Chairman, if I could interrupt, I apologize. I did warn you in advance, John. I had an unavoidable conflict at 11 o'clock. I did ask a question of the chief in closed session that was more properly in open, dealing with the fact that special constables have not been needed for some time at the courthouse. And I'll just look forward. I'm hoping he's able to just bring that up of his own volition so I could read the explanation in the minutes. Is that a fair way of proceeding? I regret the conflict, but I did let the chair know.
Yeah, sure. That's fine, John.
Okay, thank you very much.
No concerns. So I'll address that now then, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
So the hours that are being worked are reduced numbers, so they're in line with last year's. One of those positions, so the court security, our requirements there are in order to maintain court security. We've cut down on the number of people working, but the courts remain open, and so the court security in the front line, the front door screening is the majority of the hours that are compiled there. So as long as the building is open, we're required to have special constables in there conducting screening, and as well, one full-time special constable.
Chief, that explains it perfectly, Chief. I'm aware of the setup there. So I wasn't aware you still had to be there if the building was basically closed, but okay.
Yeah, that's that. And then the one person runs the cell block here as opposed to the cell block there, but it's still covered under courts.
Thank you. I thank everyone. Have a great week.
Yes, you too. Okay. Moving back to report from Director Matheson.
I'll look after that, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
So calls for service during May, we were at 1,460 calls for service. That's down slightly over the same time last year during May of 2020. However, interestingly, you'll notice that that decrease was mainly accounted for in the minor calls for service, and there was actually increases in our more serious calls for service requiring a multiple officer response in the case of emergencies. And looking at overall our year to date, when you look at the 5-month comparison, we're now sitting at 6,963 calls for service compared to 6,641 calls for service during that same 5-month period last year, accounting for a 4.84 increase from 2020 to 2021.
Thank you.
That concludes Director Bell Matheson's report. Unless there's any questions, I can also deliver Director Hill's report if you wish.
Sure. Just a comment before you continue on. Looks like I neglected to include Director Bell Matheson's report in the slide deck, so I will make sure I include that before they're published on the website. So sorry about that, guys. Yes, now moving on to Director Hill.
No problem. Thank you.
Okay, for IT services during the month of May, they were working on an RFP for a fire contract for a new township. They began infrastructure work on Perth County Fire Dispatch. They were also looking at quotations for 2 additional fire areas in 2 remote locations. They were doing work for Saugeen Shores, doing their security audit, and also working on the alternate dispatch location, our backup location, and that's nearing completion. The floor and walls are completed, and we're awaiting furniture and some of the final wiring. Next Gen 911 discussions were in further progression with Bell, and they're also working on configurations for some of the new staff members that started here and getting them set up on our system. And that concludes the IT report.
I think there was also a graph or information was provided regarding the voice trial updates on PSAP.
Yeah, that's correct. Go ahead.
Yep, so you can see in the graph where we're sitting at 93.33%. And basically we're in line with the OPP, the same progress as them, and also Sherbrooke Police. And in reality, Owen Sound is ready as soon as we're allowed to move to that stage. We're just basically in the waiting stage now to get the okay to go ahead.
Okay, great. So we're already waiting to flip the switch, exactly. Okay. Thank you, Inspector. Moving on to financial reports from the Chief.
Yeah, so if you're looking through the financial reports, you'll see the variance shows approximately 3.95% below budget. There is some fluctuation. The officers' wages were $188,000, or the officers' department was lower, as well as civilians lower. But there is a 3rd pay period coming up in July, so that will balance some of that out. But through discussions with Donna and through discussions at the city with Kate, we're in a good position moving forward towards the end of the year as we project through, as we approach the halfway mark, to be under budget again this year.
Great.
Subject to any questions, it's probably not in the neighborhood of 3.95%, probably more in the area of just over or around 2%, but that will still be an accurate projection.
Okay, great. Okay, moving on to item 14B, approval of outstanding accounts of $57,522.43. Can I have a motion to go ahead and approve those?
Also move them.
Thank you, Jill. Seconder Garth. Ian in favor?
Favor.
Okay, thank you. And John's not here. Okay. Moving on to operating plans from the Chief of Police.
And so the first thing is the review of the operational plan, and just that as we go through here, we're moving forward despite COVID and despite all the other restrictions. When we'll provide you with a fulsome update in September. This month was concentrating on getting the annual report completed, but we are moving forward with a number of initiatives, like we mentioned previously with the road to mental readiness. That was one of the items in the plan that we've implemented and completed, and we're about the halfway mark for the operational plan and strategic plan. So we'll give you an update for the September meeting on where we sit at the halfway mark and how our progress is coming along.
Great, thank you. Then you have your activity report.
Yes, there is not a whole lot there in the month of May. I was off for some unscheduled, I missed some unscheduled time, so missed a number of things, but I did attend the OAPSB annual virtual conference and did a number of other meetings while I was off. So, if I think any questions, that's my activity report.
Okay. Great, thank you very much. Moving on to other items of new business, item 16. And I think this turns over to Director Bishop, Inspector Bishop. Sorry about that.
Morning, everyone. So we ran a competition for part-time special constables. We've had a number of staffing changes over the last couple of months that, including a new switchboard operator that has drawn from our existing specials, such that we have a need to post for some new ones. You'll see there's a list of 5 there. Kimberly Schwarting is actually our court case manager from a previous competition. However, that is a special constable appointment as well. So she needs the ability to be able to swear to informations and things like that. So she is, that position is also considered a special constable. So of the remainder, you have Ryan Cressetta, Hannah Morden, Braden Ron, and Kaylee Wheeler. They will be our new part-time special constables. They just completed training last week for most of their ministry mandated training. And what's required for their ministry appointment is the board to pass a motion to appoint those 5 members as special constables. Following your appointment, should you do so, I'm then able to complete the ministry documentation. Once they return the approval from the ministry, then the board chair simply needs to sign off on the final documentation, and they will at that point be sworn in by the chief as new special constables. So I would ask the board consider the appointment of the 5 members that you see before you and approve their appointment as special constables.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Gareth. Seconder.
I'll second, Ian.
Thank you, Ian. Jill in favor?
Yes, I am.
And John's not with us. Moving on to item B, and this is regarding the appointment of representative of the Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan. Currently under Police Services Act Part 11, Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan Section 145 Item 3 requires that the advisory committee must consist of a person who represents the police service board of the municipality in addition to the police chief. Based on that requirement, I'm looking for a nomination to fill a position left vacant by Marion Kepke's departure. Who would you like to nominate to serve on that?
Is there anybody that's interested but wants to be on it? And that would maybe narrow it.
When do they, like, what's involved? Like, when do they have meetings? How often do they meet?
So it's about a monthly meeting. Let me just look at my calendar quickly. I'm trying to find the next meeting and what day it is. So it's usually Wednesdays from 1:30 to 3:30, and that's monthly, but I'm not sure if they're meeting this coming month. And it's the steering committee, the oversight. So there's it's the not the steering committee, the working committee anyway, with all the members from across the different municipalities and police services boards and things.
How many people are on that group?
If everybody participates, I think it's about 60 or more.
Okay.
If there's no other interest, I wouldn't mind. I would like to sit on the.
I would very quickly nominate Jill.
Second. I second her nomination.
No, I think that's good. Perfect.
Yes, great.
Thank you, Jill.
Thank you, Jill. That was easy. Good stuff. Go ahead.
Sorry, I'll make those arrangements then, and I'll make sure you get forwarded the next invitation.
Perfect.
make some.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Last meeting we talked about diversity plans in general, and I was doing some reading and some research, and I came across a requirement under Section 28 of the new CSPA, and this is for just an information item for Ian, I guess, and for Tim. It talks about every municipality that maintains a municipal board, and that would be the City of Owen Sound, shall prepare and by resolution approve a diversity plan to ensure that the members of the municipal board appointed by the municipality are representative of the diversity of the population in the municipality. That's only for information. I'll turn it over to you guys to let that. You probably already have one in place, but I just wanted to let you know that requirement that was in the CSBA.
I think Tim has cut out to go to another meeting there. We'll have similar provincial requirements as do you, and I know it is something that we're working on within the city. Reflecting the community is a very interesting thing in Owen Sound because we're really just starting to diversify our advance, and I think Greg would say the same thing in hiring within the police force, that you only need 2 or 3 to reflect the entire community, but it is something that we're working on to be more conscious of. What I would suggest, I know there's something going on for welcoming communities at the county that will trickle down to the city. Once we get some kind of a policy at the city, I would suggest that we just bring it over and kind of adopt it, make it our own at the police board, assuming that it's happening in the next year.
Yes.
It doesn't make sense for everyone to do their own, I'm thinking.
Yes. Anywhere you can do copy, paste, or steal from, best way to do it, rather than going and having a whole bunch of really totally different ones hanging around. It makes sense to have one common denominator. Okay, good. Next item up.
Before we move on from that, that's Inspector Clooney. That's on his radar over the summer as well. He's gathered all the documents from a number of other police services, and we'll be trying to bring something forward from the policing aspect of it.
Yes, great.
I would include or encourage Jeff to contact probably Melissa Clancy at City Hall, just to maybe she can beg her own steel from you if you're going to be ahead of the.
Okay, thanks, Ian. You're breaking up a little bit there. Next item is 2020 annual report.
Yeah, so I'm going to give credit where credit's due, and Jeff really took the ball and led this initiative and moved it forward and got it completed with the assistance from everybody from all the different areas within the police service. But certainly he drove it forward and got it completed. And with our staffing limitations that are currently in place, I just want to make sure I recognize for that work. I'm proud to present the 2020 report. Certainly it was a challenging year looking back with all the COVID changes and COVID restrictions, as well as some of the changes in policing and how they're looked at and the image of policing throughout the year. But overall, a strong year locally. Certainly a lot of things haven't changed from year to year, but you'll see that our number of calls for service continued to increase. Our charges laid went down, but there are some, but we quit doing, we quit laying multiple charges on breaches. So that number probably needs an asterisk next to it to actually say that where we would have charged somebody with 3 different breaches for being out after their curfew, having something to drink and not keeping the peace and being good behavior is now 1. So the number probably, it shows that it probably reflects an increase as opposed to that appearance of a decrease. A ride program, our PRD complaints. Ride programs aren't necessarily there to arrest impaired drivers as much as it is to put out that deterrence and keep people from driving, and the chances of actually finding an impaired driver while you're out there isn't as high as if you're doing controlled or focused ride, which is something that we're moving to now in the future, where we're looking at locations and things to focus our ride programs. OIPRD complaints, there were 6 complaints. As you'll see, 5 of them were screened out. The one that was left was sent back for investigation and was found to be unsubstantiated. So I think that reflects highly on the professionalism of our officers and our members. The fact that there were no issues as a result, and nothing had to follow. Criminal investigations, obviously a busy year. Drugs and intelligence, a busy year. Some significant seizures. Our forensic unit Corey continues to do an excellent job there, and working well with everybody else. And our records management branch and bylaw licensing, all those things, you see the job that they do on a daily basis, and as well as the third-party records checks that we complete. Court services, it was extremely challenging for courts this year. I don't really need to go over it again, but it was a revolving door of what was going on, what wasn't going on, how things are going to be done, moving and adapting and setting up first audio and then video for court case appearances, and moving to virtual. So the courts were probably the biggest changes in the court system in the last probably hundreds of years took place within the last 9 months of 2020. So credit goes out to Director Clooney and all the court services members there as well. Communication Center continues to be a source of revenue, and along with information technology and the work that they've been doing and getting NG 911 ready to go and leading the country, and that I think is highlighted in something that's important. New projects for IT include providing services to others and working on radio systems, all of those things. It's been a very busy, very successful year there. Community services, Jason Cranny certainly has to be recognized for the work that he's done, and delivering the kids program virtually to all those students, and assisting in changing the layout of that, and the partnerships and the connections that we've made and he's made, particularly for the police service. I think you'll see the results of that in the Native Art project that we've highlighted already here, First Nations art that we've received, as well as the pride flag raising and partnerships things. Those, as well as all the other things that are mentioned in the annual report. Some great work there, including the Yippee students that he's brought into the service. Our auxiliary police, a difficult year for them with the COVID restrictions and not being able to come into the station, but still significant community engagement, significant results at the Christmas food drive when they are able to be here, and when there are events, they certainly are willing, able, and eager to participate. And hopefully moving forward next year, next month, and for the rest of the year, as we come into new restrictions and changes and lift the current restrictions, the auxiliary should be back in full force. Collision reporting, similar type of years to others, and statistical comparisons. You can go through those, but there's some significant increases in some serious types of offenses that really we need to address, and I'm not sure how we address those when most everything is reactive policing on our part, but we'll be looking to try and do some proactive work in that area when staffing permits. And budget wise, we were within our budget. We actually returned money to the city again last year, and it's a difficult service to manage when over 90% of your budget is reflected in salaries and benefits. So there's very little discretionary spending, and I think we've done well with what we've done. So bit of a change in the org chart over last year, and then just some pictures to highlight the annual report. And as I say again, thank you, Jeff, for making sure that got all looked after.
Thank you.
Any questions from the board members? Feel free.
Just a comment. Pass on my congratulations to Jeff as well. That's just an excellent report. I think you did a very, very good job on it. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
Any items, comments from other board members?
Well,
Okay.
it was an impressive report. Nice to see all of the positive things that came out of the year, although it was difficult in every other way.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. No, it's pretty impressive report and pretty impressive statistics when you consider what they had to work, conditions they had to work under with COVID and everything else in the last year. So kudos to everyone that not only put the report together, but helped put the statistics together to show what they actually did during the year to keep on sound safe. All right, if there's nothing else, I'm going to terminate the close of the public meeting at 11:24. And if we could rejoin, say, in 10 minutes, 11:35, we'll go back in and finish up our closed session and also go into confidential close. So we'll see you in the third meeting invite at 11:35.
Thank you.
Okay.